Hello and welcome to the Trading Bell. My name is Nokit Kimboy. Now, our securities market is one that is evolving by the day. New innovation coming in to make sure that the market is growing and also becoming more inclusive. We understand that by volumes, the players who own stocks in our Nairobi Securities Exchange is almost 81%, but the value of the stocks is lower compared to foreign investors. So some of this innovation, is there a concerted effort to have also more retail investors locally coming in play and engaging in our markets, making it more liquid? Well, today we'll have a conversation around one of the innovative moves to make sure that the market is growing, and this touches on securities lending and borrowing platform. I'm joined by the Central Depository and Settlement Corporation CEO, Mr. Nkoregamba Mwebesa. And before we do much, let's take a look at his profile, shall we? Nkoregamba Mwebesa is the Chief Executive Officer of CDSC, Central Depository Settlement Corporation. He has more than 25 years' experience in the financial services sector in the East Africa region. Mwebesa has been involved in a number of key landmark transactions, including multiple equity listings, debt listings, and rights issues, and on the East African exchanges. He has previously served as Managing Director of Stanlib Kenya Limited, Chief Executive of SBG Securities Limited, and as the Chief Executive Officer of the Nairobi Securities Exchange. You can see from his experience, he's in a position of authority to comment on this particular issue, especially knowing the role of Central Depository and Settlement Corporation in this journey. Mr. Mwebesa, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
All right, starting off, securities lending and borrowing. This is quite a concept when it comes to securities market, but it has not been happening locally as we assume. Bring us up to date. What is this?
So allow me to call it SLB. We use that acronym. Securities lending and borrowing can be a bit of a mouthful, but it's a very, very simple concept. Yeah, as you say, it's not been done before, formally, I would say, in this market, but I believe there are pockets of transactions that happen where assets are lent for a particular period and then returned back to the owner. So basically, what are we saying? If you have an asset, and in this case we're talking about equities listed on the Securities Exchange, that you do not want to sell at this point in time, you're holding them maybe for whatever reason, you've got obligations in the future, for example like a pension scheme, instead of letting them lie idle in your CDS account, there's now an opportunity to actually lend them for a fee to a borrower who has his own trading strategy as far as the securities market is concerned. The shares will be returned to you, the equities will be returned to you, you will earn a fee, and the borrower will do his own trading strategy with that and also make his own return. So it's a very simple process. It's just the way banks lend money, because the banks lend money because they're sitting on these assets. You go and deposit your money in the bank, it's aggregated with other depositors, and the bank has a pool to lend to people who require credit. So it's the same concept. Only here it will be managed on our platform as CDSC, and we are guaranteeing the entire process. So we are acting almost like a central counterparty to make sure that those who lend do not lose their shares or their assets for that matter. And on the other hand, those that borrow will actually return the assets to the lenders.
All right. Yeah. Let's go back. In April 2020, you are admitted by CMA to the regulatory sandbox. And this has been a journey. Now we're in 2022. Outline for us in brief, what was the process as being part of this particular sandbox? What were you trying to tweak over the 2-year period or 1-year period, because you're in early 2022 actually on this particular product?
Okay, so the reason that we requested to be admitted to the sandbox was, as you say, was to test the platform. was to engage with all our stakeholders, users of the platform, our CDS account holders, to be able to see how best to roll out the platform. Now, securities lending and borrowing has two general formats. You can have what we call a bilateral arrangement, where as a borrower or as a lender, I seek out the other counterparty and we enter into a private arrangement where I'll borrow your securities and return them at a certain point in time. This is the interest that I'm going to pay. We work out the economics and we sign off. There are other parties that will probably be involved to make sure that the assets are held somewhere, or have somebody has oversight of not necessarily held somewhere, but there's that agreement is sort of supervised by someone, maybe a legal entity or something, a legal firm or something like that. So that's the bilateral one. And it does happen, like I said, there are pockets of that. I think mostly maybe in the fixed income market. The banks do run those sort of arrangements. And that is what was initially envisaged by the law, by the Capital Markets Authority. Now, what we are proposing, or not proposing, we're beyond proposal, what we are bringing to the market, or what we have brought to the market, is what we call a screen-based model. So the screen-based model is where it's all anonymous. If you want to lend your shares, you go to your agent, who's an agent of the Central Depository and Settlement Corporation, of the CDSC, and you say, these shares, I want to make them available for lending. They're then ring-fenced on the system. And on the other side are people looking to borrow. Again, they're anonymous. They'll go to their agents and request, say, look, I'm looking to borrow, Safaricom shares for this platform, which we believe is very robust. We needed to get buy-in from all stakeholders. We needed people to understand it. So during that period, we were testing it. We had some transactions go through. We had some that went through to the end. There were pockets of demand and supply. So people who had put their shares up for borrowing, and people who are looking to people put their shares up for lending, and people who are looking to borrow. We did a wide canvas of all stakeholders. We believe that, for example, the pension industry is probably going to be the biggest provider of securities for borrowing. They'll be the biggest lenders.
Okay.
And so we had discussions with the pension schemes, with the fund managers, with custodians, and even with the regulator, the pension regulator, the Retirement Benefits Authority, who during that period gave no objection after they understood the platform to pension schemes to be able to participate. That is a very big plus for us because some jurisdictions, larger markets than ours, they're actually not allowed to participate for one reason or another. But we believe for a screen-based model, it's a lot easier for those kind of, and a lot safer for those kind of lenders.
That's quite interesting because you've mentioned these two models, and I'm thinking the issue of anonymity, quite amazing. Maybe outline for us, of course, at the far end, you've also mentioned the issue of safety. What are the outright benefits of on-screen SLB model, other than the anonymity and the safety aspect of it?
So first, obviously, you have the CDSC sitting in the middle and midwifing everything. So that comes with an element of guarantee. We will know who has lent, we'll know who has borrowed, and we will make sure that the transactions actually go through to the end, and you'll get your shares back. Now, for borrowers, they need to provide collateral, just as you do when you borrow from a bank. This is not micro lending. This is proper borrowing and lending. So you will need to have collateral, which at the moment is cash. We are looking at other near cash assets as well. We hope that in time we'll be able to use treasuries and other assets. So your collateral will come with a margin, which at present, as we go live, is 10%, which will be marked to market on a daily basis. And if one needs to top up, then your agent, who you borrowed through, will call for that. Will do a margin call. So that gives the extra added security to the lender that whoever is borrowing my shares, and it's all fungible at this point in time, but we know you've lent your shares, will actually be able to make good. So the margin, or the collateral and the margin would only come into play for us to deploy if the borrower is unable to, for whatever reason, to pay at the end of the period, to return the shares. Then we shall go into the market and use those funds to acquire the shares on behalf of the borrower and return the shares to the borrower.
Oh, that's quite interesting.
Yeah.
Collateral.
Yes.
So there is an extra buffer to it.
Yeah.
And also CDSC, you are incredible at what you do. So just that confidence by itself. I'm looking at the impact on the different kinds of investors. You've mentioned, pension industry is very keen on this particular platform.
Yeah.
What impact are we expecting, the balance between institutional investors and when you talk about retail investors?
Okay, maybe it's early days to be able to discern that, but I think our model works for both sides. It'll be very difficult for a retail investor to do a bilateral transaction or lending and borrowing transaction because of the volumes. So we believe that it works very well for the retailers. For the institutions, again, we're taking away that headache of having to look for a counterparty. We're taking that headache for you of having to pay other fees to either legal firms, law firms, or banks for you to be able to do to borrow the shares or to lend the shares. So we believe the platform really works for everyone. We think it could be skewed, just as the secondary market is, towards the institutions if they really come on board, and we believe that they should. Just to talk a little bit about pensions, which is